Hey everybody, this is Casey Connor with Top Step Consulting. Thanks for joining us today for the webinar. We're going to talk about consulting skills today. First thing I'm going to do is mute all the lines so there's no distractions on the call.
The conference has been muted.
I'll unmute all the lines towards the end if there are any questions so that we can go through the webinar here. Quick agenda of what we're going to cover today. So we're going to talk about, it sounds obvious, but why consulting skills matter, why we need to think about our team skills and how to train them. We're going to talk about why TopStep offers training in this area, why it's something we really focus on. We'll talk about our approach to teaching it. That's where we'll spend the most of our time, how we recommend that our clients build a consulting skills training program and how sometimes we help with that. And then reasons that everybody should offer it. So we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you again for joining us. Real quick, upcoming events that TopStep has. As many of you know, we do a lot of OpenAir related consulting, and we host a lot of community and user groups around OpenAir. One thing we've been doing this year is reporting workshops. It's always a common need and request for OpenAir users. That's where we send a couple of OpenAir experts to join a room of customers, and we spend a couple days and go through. And number one, you walk out of there with reports developed that you need. And number two, you get a lot of skills and experience with OpenAir reporting in the course of the workshop. So we don't have any more scheduled this year at this point, but definitely would like to get feedback from areas where people would like to have those workshops hosted. We also have user groups. That's where we have communities come together to meet each other, to share knowledge. We'll usually bring a topic and cover some maybe new release information and tips and tricks, but we also like to get feedback from the community and help everybody get to know each other so we can build a community of OpenAir users. Next one's coming up just in a couple weeks in Washington, D.C., and then Seattle and Boston in November. We also, of course, host these expert webinars once a month. This month, obviously, is consulting skills. November is going to be change management. And then December, we're going to do fiscal years in OpenAir, which is a popular end-of-year topic to help everybody plan for how to close out the year and begin the next one on the right foot. So why consulting skills? So a little bit about TopStep and why this matters to us. We're known for business consulting around PS operations. So that's our background. We have a lot of experience with multiple tools, but in particular, we do a lot with OpenAir, as many of you probably know. What you may not know is that the top in TopStep stands for Tools, Operations, and Process. And then we have a methodology called STEPS. So that's where we come up with TopStep Consulting. And most of the companies out there have something like this. The tools matter. Most everybody has some kind of a tool in place. Methodology matters. How you get stuff done obviously matters. But underlying all of this element is people. And we don't always focus on the skills of the people and how they're delivering. So your people obviously are your product. That's what you're putting out there. Here's some issues that we hear all the time. Obviously, we work with lots of different firms who really are in the same business we are, helping them with OpenAir tool deployments and such, and operational issues. The things we hear all the time are that you're missing on client expectations, or you're having communication or even kind of behavioral issues with your consultants, not understanding what it takes to successfully deliver in the mind of your clients. You may have client retention issues or just client satisfaction issues where you're trying to get over a hump and increase those client sat scores. You may have trouble increasing your bill rates or delivering perceived value. You may be having project overruns. And almost all those issues are people issues, right? Occasionally there are product issues and other things, or pure technical skill type issues. But at the end of the day, a lot of the gaps that we have in our industry that we all run into are related to people and how they understand what they're delivering. So if you train your people on pure consulting skills, you can train them to deliver better value and help with your brand. So consulting skills training, this type of training, having people focus on this, not only as an introductory program to get them to think about it, but as an ongoing effort to get your organization built around increasing skill level, has definitely been proven to help. So the training we're going to talk about today, and that we're going to spend a lot of time discussing, is something Top Step has been through ourselves. And we think it's had an impact on our business, where we've been listed as at the top of the best of the best by Service Performance Insight. Many of you may fill out their surveys every year, and those are based on things like EBITDA and revenue growth and on-time projects, referenceable clients. So we feel that it's made a difference in our business with our consultants, helping them understand how to deliver value. So we think it can make a difference. So quickly, the pyramid that we're looking at, it's really a triangle, but we call it a pyramid. So the bottom level of the pyramid, start there, and then we work to the top as we build consulting skills and people. So the bottom level is where we start with everybody. Build some technical skill and some knowledge of an industry. Learn how to get stuff done. And then the next level up is you build relationships with your clients and you expand your network. And then the top level is influence, which really translates into an ability to sell. And we're going to spend a lot more time on each of those levels as we go through that. And we'll talk about how we deliver the training to your organizations, or how you can build a program around this yourselves. Consulting obviously is growing. It's growing at twice the rate of the overall economy at large over the next several years. That's the projection. And that's held true for several years. What that means to all of us is that we're going to be hiring people who have no consulting background and therefore may not understand the success factors in our industry, what it takes to deliver that perceived value. So training your team on what your brand is and what you're promising your customers, what your expectation is in the market, is critical, and we're not all good at that. So your brand might say, hey, we're always on time and under budget. Or your brand might say, we're going to make you more efficient, or we're going to increase your margin, or we're just going to get this tool deployed. It could be anything, but your team needs to understand that. Once they understand it, then they need to know how to do it. How do we get this done as an organization? What makes us different and better? So that takes us to step one. Accomplish objectives. So the beginning of the consulting skills training is kind of the foundation. So we call it domain knowledge. It's process or industry-specific knowledge, meaning you understand accounts payable, or you understand maybe oil and gas or healthcare, right? It's either a process or an industry type of orientation. There's also technical skills, which can be product-related, like OpenAir or Salesforce.com or whatever tools you may work with. It could be technical skills, pure developer, C++, C#.NET type skills. Or they could be what we might call technical skills within a function like accounting, like, knowing the debits and credits of things, knowing how to do a budget and a forecast. Then we have execution. So that ties together your process knowledge and your technical skill, and that's how do you do things. That's where methodology comes in, right? So that's how we get stuff done. So then we talk about, all right, how do you train people on this? So you may already have something in place at your organization. That's, maybe it's a training program, could be a mentoring program, knowledge management, like a wiki or a SharePoint site where you store things. Now, some of you may have a formal onboarding process, and that's something we strongly recommend. Some of you may have hey, new person, here's a link to our SharePoint site and go read these documents, right? It kind of runs the gamut what kind of training is out there in the industry. Or you may not have anything when you bring people on board. You may be hiring people with very specific skills and you just put them on projects. If you're good at training your consultants at anything, it's usually here. This is where most people are focused and what they're good at. So let's break down how you figure out what to train them on. We like to think of it as, look at your most knowledgeable people and what do they know? What makes your best people the best people in terms of their knowledge? So what do they know that delivers value? So write that down. And then you say, how do your best people get things done? How do they execute? What's good and clean and what's making them deliver perceived value? So you combine those two things and you kind of have this prototype of here's where we need to get everybody. Then you document the learning curve. How do we get there? And make sure you do it explicitly. So you want to define, here are the technical skills it takes for us to be good, and here are the execution skills it takes for us to be really good. And then define a path to get there. That builds value for you, but it also builds value for your employee. Hey, as you climb this curve, you become more valuable to us, which works for both of us, right? So train your people on how you do it. How do you manage tasks? How do you collaborate with your customers? A lot of people are great at going out on a project and getting handed specific tasks, but do they understand how to work with the overall team or with the client to keep communication lines open and make sure that you're getting credit for the work you do? So it's all those things that get wrapped into this. So this is a picture of the training that we deliver. We deliver this part of the training as what we call work map-based training. So 4 to 6 people will join together in a group and work through these various exercises as part of our training program. So the first exercise there on the bottom left is a very basic project deployment type of process. And there's kind of a business case that's built around this as part of the training. So we give them a specific business case, and they work through this exercise. One exercise is, okay, here are all the typical deliverables you might see on a project. And they have to assign those deliverables to each of these project cycles. So it kind of becomes an introduction to how we get things done. How do we execute projects? Then we talk about issues that come up and where are these issues likely to come up during a project, and they have to figure that out. The second exercise there on the top, the task execution, we tell them the best kind of best practice steps to execute a task on a project. So if you think of it as a small task, host a meeting, or a big task, design the system. Doesn't really matter. You walk through the same basic steps, and we make them figure out what order those steps go in, and then kind of give them the right answer and explain why all the steps are important, even on the smallest task, even on the biggest task. Then we give them a set of issues that commonly come up on projects and say, okay, tell us which thing you probably skipped in this execution cycle to understand where things went wrong. Why is your client upset? Why are the wrong people showing up for meetings? Things like that, so they can really solidify the learning of why these steps matter. And then we talk about collaboration. So that's the forgotten corner, particularly for our introverts, and we usually have them in the industry. They have to understand the communication cycle and the feedback loop that's required, not only to communicate back to the client that something got done, but also to make sure that there's no question about the way it was done or the hours that were spent or any of that. So once we figure out how we do things well, how do we execute well and execute based on a plan, then we go into the relationship level. And that's sort of the next level that we build on with our consulting teams. So we call it access and affinity. You could use any terms you want. But access is basically the right people know who you are, and they understand the value you deliver. Excuse me. So you have to do level 1 really well before you get that. Affinity, frankly, it means they like you. So we all have worked probably with folks that are really good at doing things, but they don't always get credit for it, or they're maybe kind of a bull in the china shop. So we want to avoid that. We want to make sure that our clients respect us and know what we do. So this level is tricky, right? This kind of gets a little more personal, and very few companies emphasize training or even sort of a feedback loop around this area with their consultants. At a certain level, we always talk about it, but with your ground level consultants, we don't always talk about it, and it's actually really important. So you break down, how do you teach people to do this? So look at the known, quote, people issues that cause your projects to be challenged. We identify those through project postmortems or follow-ups with clients or surveys, however we go about it. We find out what those issues are and where they're coming from. We call them out, and then we discuss how to avoid them. So that's sort of your ongoing continuous improvement process around it. You have to emphasize the importance of having productive and strategic relationships in consulting. Key players matter. People in general matter. How they feel about you matters. So we give your team a process to do this, to learn how to do it, and then how to execute on it. And it works even for introverts who maybe don't naturally think this way, but they can identify key players and at the very minimum let somebody know who the right people and who the decision makers are. So this is the level where true consulting skills grow, right? It's how to deliver difficult messages, how to do effective communication and presentation, managing productive conflict, and then avoiding unproductive conflict, and the big one, managing expectations, right? All that falls into this. So here's our work map-based training for strategic relationships, and we walk through several exercises. I'll walk through a high level here. Again, working into the same business case, we say, here's a stack of people, read about them in relation to the project, and then figure out who the key players are on the project. In other words, we define key players for them. It's essentially who can help you be successful. Then we take them through an exercise of identifying what thing can they do to make each one of those key players have an affinity for them. How do they engage with them as a person? We talk about conflict, how to manage conflict, how to avoid conflict. We kind of have some fun with this area, the high road, low road. We give them some examples of when their client brings them issues. And then we say, okay, talk about how you would deliver a high road response, and then talk about a low road response, and how sometimes our nature is to go to the low road, but we can't do that. The last exercise here is about extending your network. So we say, look at all these key players, and then identify people they could introduce you to that could help you either expand your network outside this client or into other departments or other things. And it helps to get your consultants thinking that way to help build your business as part of what they're doing every day. Then the last level, the top level, is expanding your influence. So really that's about influencing your client to hopefully buy more projects from you. But the reason they want to buy from you is they know you can deliver value. So it's a mutually beneficial thing. So you ask, how do you train your team to have influence to sell more work? And it's a very personal thing. It's not something that one formula works for everybody, and we all know that. So very, very few people, however, will be able to achieve this without first going through the first couple levels of the pyramid. In other words, they have to learn how to do the job, how to get stuff done. They have to learn how to engage with their clients and make happy clients. Once they have that background and that confidence, then they can be more influential and they can sell work. Not everybody jumps directly to the influence level. Very few do. So try to break down this way. What are you trying to influence your customers to do? Is it buy a product? Is it buy a project? Is it implement programs? Whatever it might be. Then you say, okay, what's my team's ability to influence them? And then what's the gap? Where could we do better at influencing them? Then how do we change that? So your team goes through a self-assessment process. It says, okay, what are we good at? What are we not good at? And you build on their strengths. Classic to try to work on weaknesses all the time, but more often than not when it comes to people's comfort level with influencing customers, they're going to be good at it in a certain way. So for some people it's speaking, and maybe they need Toastmasters. Other people may be blogging, could be developer forums, right? Building credibility through participation in online forums. Speaking engagements, some people are great in front of a crowd and can really help your brand by speaking at conferences or user groups or even on webinars. Or even through volunteering. There can be industry groups or even non-industry groups where volunteering can help build your brand. So for this exercise, we have them go through more of a personal assessment. It says, okay, where do I have influence? What am I good at? What am I not good at? What do I like and what do I don't like? Some people are scared of public speaking, and many people are. And some of those can get good at it, others can't. That's a classic example. But there are others. Some are really good at delivering technical value, but not great at communication. So there are lots of different ways people can achieve influence and things that they can work on. So we help them self-assess based on different types of influence, where they're good and where they think they can get better. And we get them to kind of commit to things that they're going to start doing to help increase their influence with their clients or in the industry, things they should stop, and maybe things they're already doing that they should continue to work on. So it's a good personal exercise, and then the results of that are your people are more self-aware about where they need to be, and then you can become more aware of what skills they need to help you succeed. So kind of to sum up the training and the point and why we do all this, the skills are critical, and beyond just the technical skills, the actual people skills and the understanding of the importance of that. It's critical. We want to do a great job on our current customers. We all know that retaining a customer and selling more to them is a lot cheaper than getting a new one. So we always want to build our install base or our current customer base. We also want to gain new customers. Our current customers can help us do that better than anybody else. So making our current customers happy, obviously, is the best thing we can do. Now, if you're having issues with that, deliberately training on that is key. So you have to train with the intention of developing your team's skills around this area. Don't assume that what matters to you, that what matters to your business, is what they're going to learn automatically through osmosis. We have to be very intentional about it. So back to kind of the pyramid growth, right? Teach them how you do things, teach them the people side, and then teach them how to sell. And selling isn't necessarily putting a contract down and getting it signed. It's knowing how to sniff out opportunity and knowing how to talk to your customer and ask good questions, and then getting the right people involved to close it, if that's the next step. Once you do all this, you can see the results in your business. You'll see you're able to grow your revenue and get better bill rates, and your customers will be more happy. So it's worked great for several of our customers. It's really good for project teams, and it's really good for what I would call a start group. If you're hiring a group of consultants to come in together to go through this exercise together, of understanding the critical elements and delivering value. So next steps. We offer the Consulting Skills Training course. It's a one-day course that covers these three areas. And then, of course, we can help build a program around that. But we also encourage everybody to just focus on this as part of your overall organizational development, to think about how you can build your team, because it will help you deliver better value. We have a lot of tips on our website. You can see some of the topics listed here, classic consulting skills topics. And what I like about these is you can just forward a link to somebody, sometimes to have some fun with them, or sometimes as a true development effort to help them understand how to think about issues that they've run across, or sometimes issues that they've caused. on a project. We do a lot of OpenAir work, very active in the user group and in the industry. We have these 2 books on our website. They're ebooks you can download, tips for OpenAir users. They're just things that we've worked with our customers on many times, just little things that you can change that often can make a big difference in some of your operations. We give those away. So please check those out if you're interested. And then, of course, this is just our overview of Top Step and how to be in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. I'm going to go ahead.